July night, 1918. The basement of the Ipatiev house. The last breath of an empire froze in the cold Yekaterinburg air. Nicholas Romanov did not know that in a second his world would collapse completely, turning into bloody dust under revolution boots. This is not just an execution. It is the finale of a 300-year drama where every mistake was paid with loved ones' lives. The roar of gunshots drowned out the screams. At that moment, history delivered its harshest verdict to a man who didn't want to be Tsar. But how did Nicholas, considering himself God's anointed, allow this nightmare? Where did the path to this basement begin? The history of Retribution begins not with death, but with a coronation washed in blood at Kadinka Field, a prophecy ignored. The celebration turned into tragedy. Thousands died in a crush for royal gifts while Nicholas danced at a French ball. The people saw a sign. The Tsar doesn't hear the groans. The Tsar is cold. The Tsar is a stranger to his own land. Nicholas II believed in absolute power, but possessed only absolute indecision. He was a slave to his traditions and family. His wife, Alexandra Fyodorovna, became his shadow and his curse. Her fanatical faith led them both into the abyss. But the true horror lay in their son's blood. Alexei's hemophilia, a secret that opened the palace doors for the devil. And that devil's name was Grigory Rasputin, a filthy elder with a hypnotic gaze who subdued the empress's will. While Rasputin whispered prayers, Russia boiled. Bloody Sunday of 1905 became the point of no return for the people's trust. A peaceful procession met lead. St. Petersburg's snow turned scarlet, and that day Nicholas lost the title of Father Tsar. He became Nicholas the Bloody. But in the palace, they continued to dance, ignoring the smell of burning from the streets. The empire was bursting at the seams, but Nicholas believed God would protect his anointed. He didn't realize God had turned away. The Russo-Japanese War was a humiliation. The fleet perished, the army retreated. The Tsar's pride was trampled in the Far East. Instead of reforms, he chose repression. Instead of truth, illusions fed by his circle. The ring was tightening. The Great War, Nicholas's last chance to be a national leader, turned into its final demise. He left for the front, leaving Petrograd in the hands of his German wife and a mad elder. It was the monarchy's sentence. Soldiers died by millions, while intrigues were spun in the capital. Hunger began to burn cities from within. Rasputin's murder in December 1916 was an attempt to save the throne, but poison and bullets only accelerated the inevitable. Too late. These words became the motto of the end of Romanov rule. Anger had accumulated for decades. February 1917, bread riots turned into revolution. Soldiers refused to shoot the people. They started shooting officers. Abdication. In a train car, amidst a cold forest, Nicholas signed the paper that erased him from history as a ruler. All around is treason, cowardice, and deceit, he wrote in his diary. He still did not admit his guilt. The former Tsar became simply Citizen Romanov. From palaces to exile, under guard of those he once commanded. The new government didn't know what to do with the family. They were too dangerous alive and too inconvenient dead. Tobolsk, Siberian exile, became a time of false calm for them. They sawed wood and hoped for a miracle. But in Petrograd, those who knew no mercy came to power. The Bolsheviks demanded blood for centuries of oppression. The family is moved to Ekaterinburg, to the House of Special Purpose. Here, fate snapped the trap shut. Windows painted with lime, walks limited, guards mock yesterday's gods. Retribution was taking shape. Nicholas continued to hope for rescue from his royal relatives in Europe, but George V, his cousin, remained silent. They were abandoned by everyone. The Tsar's loneliness, surrounded by enemies, the peak of his fall. The Bolsheviks feared the White Armies would free Nicholas. A dead symbol cannot lead an uprising. The liquidation order was signed in Moscow, a secret telegram that became a death warrant for the children. Yakov Yurovsky, the house commandant, began preparations. He looked for a place for the bodies before pulling the trigger. July 16th, the Last Supper. They ate in silence, not knowing it was their last meal on earth. At midnight, they were awakened, told the city was restless and they must go down to a safe place. Nicholas carried Alexei in his arms. The boy was too weak to walk. The son, the Tsar's only love and main weakness. They entered a 6-by-5-meter room, empty with striped wallpaper, a death trap with no windows. Yurovsky read the sentence. Nicholas only managed to ask, "What? What?" before the first shot rang out.
Chaos. The room filled with acrid smoke. Bullets ricocheted off the daughters' corsets where diamonds were sewn in. The jewels that were supposed to save their lives in Europe became their armor and their torment in the final minutes. It was all over in 20 minutes. 300 years of a dynasty drowned in the blood of one small room. The bodies were taken to the forest. They tried to burn them, doused them in acid. The killers wanted to erase the memory of the Romanovs. But retribution works both ways. Those who pulled the trigger soon became victims of the new system themselves. The revolution, like Saturn, began to devour its children. Yurovsky died in oblivion. Others ended in Stalinist basements. Russia plunged into decades of terror. Nicholas couldn't save the country, and the country responded in kind. Were they holy martyrs or victims of their own blindness? History is still searching for the answer. Nicholas's pride cost millions of lives. His indecision became a death sentence for his family. We see a great lesson in this story. Power without responsibility leads to a collapse that spares no one. Today, a church stands on the site of the Ipatiev house, but the blood spilled there will forever remain in the foundation of modern Russia. The history of retribution reminds us every bloody Sunday is always followed by its Ipatiev house. Nicholas II was not a villain in the usual sense. He was simply a man who did not fit his time. And in this lies the true tragedy. The scale of the personality did not match the scale of the catastrophe, but the price was paid in full. Family, hopes, empire, everything vanished in the flames of revolution. Looking back, We understand the justice of history is sometimes too cruel, but it is inevitable. What do you feel looking into the eyes of the last Tsar? Pity, or the understanding that it couldn't have been any other way? Subscribe to the History of Retribution, for those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. End of chapter, but the chronicle of retribution continues. Until next time, in the basements of history.